Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Liberty, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. The ship had been traveling for 3 months now, exploring the far reaches of space that no human had ever seen before. Jake was proud to be the captain of humanity's first deep space exploration vessel. The Liberty was not the biggest ship ever built, but it was fast and strong, with a crew of 200 brave men and women. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings." "On the sensors," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her station. Amy was the ship's weapons specialist, a young woman with sharp eyes and steady hands. She had been with the crew since the beginning of their mission. Jake walked over to look at her screen. The readings showed something large moving through space ahead of them. It was not a planet or an asteroid. It was something else entirely. "What do you think it is, Amy?" Jake asked Dot before Amy could answer. Communications Officer Lisa Bennett spoke up from across the bridge. "Captain, I'm picking up signals. They're not natural. Someone is trying to talk to us." Jake felt his heart start to beat faster. This was the moment they had all been waiting for and dreading at the same time. First contact with an alien species. "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The viewing screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a face unlike anything they had ever seen. The alien had smooth, pale blue skin that seemed to glow with its own light. Its eyes were large and dark, like deep pools of water. When it spoke, its voice was musical, almost like singing. "Greetings, unknown vessels," the alien said. "I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Fleet. We have been watching your approach with great interest. You appear to be a species we have not encountered before." Jake straightened his uniform and stepped forward. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Ship Liberty. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship among the stars." Commander Veltar's face showed what might have been a smile. "Peace and friendship. How refreshing. Many species we meet are not so civilized. Tell me, Captain Morrison, what brings you so far from your home world?" "We are explorers," Jake replied. "We want to learn about the universe and meet other intelligent life forms like yourselves." The alien commander nodded. "Excellent. We Zephyrians value knowledge above all else. Perhaps we can learn from each other. I propose a meeting if you are willing. There is a small asteroid near here where we could meet safely." Jake looked around at his crew. They all nodded their agreement. This was why they had come so far. "From Earth. We accept your proposal, Commander Veltar," Jake said. 2 hours later, Jake found himself standing on the surface of a small asteroid, wearing a spacesuit and breathing recycled air. The asteroid was about the size of a football field with a rough, rocky surface. The Zephyrians had set up some kind of dome that provided atmosphere, so both species could meet comfortably. Commander Veltar was taller than Jake had expected, almost 7 feet tall, with long, graceful limbs. His skin really did glow with a soft blue light. He wore no spacesuit, just a flowing robe that seemed to be made of liquid metal. "Welcome, Captain Morrison," Veltar said, his voice now coming through a small device that translated his words into English. "Allow me to introduce my officers. This is Science Officer Kexlan and Weapons Master Zareth." Jake introduced his own team. Besides Amy Carter, he had brought Sergeant Lucas Hayes, a tough soldier with 20 years of military experience, and Private Danny Foster, a young man who was quick with both his hands and his mind. "Your species is fascinating," Kexlan said, studying the humans with obvious interest. "Your technology is quite different from ours. We use energy-based systems, while you seem to prefer mechanical devices." "That's right," Jake said. "We found that simple, reliable technology often works better than complex systems." Commander Veltar clapped his hands together, making a sound like wind chimes. "I have an idea." To better understand each other's capabilities, perhaps we could have a friendly competition. A test of skills, if you will. What kind of test? Amy asked. A demonstration of accuracy and precision, Beltar replied. We will set up targets, and each species will show their shooting skills. It will be educational for both of us. Jake looked at Amy. She was the best shot on the ship, and Lucas and Danny were both excellent soldiers. That sounds fair, he sighed. Within an hour, the Zephyrians had set up a series of targets across the asteroid. They were simple metal plates, painted bright colors so they would be easy to see. Some were close, some were far away. Some were big, some were small. We will go first, Zareth announced. He pulled out a weapon that looked like it was made of crystal and light. When he fired, a beam of pure energy shot out, hitting the farthest target dead center. The metal plate glowed and melted. The other Zephyrians cheered. Kexlan stepped forward and fired at a smaller target. His beam hit it perfectly, leaving a smoking hole in the exact center. Impressive, Jake said, and he meant it. The Zephyrian weapons were incredibly accurate. Commander Veltar took his turn, hitting 3 targets in rapid succession. Each shot was perfect. Each hit exactly where he aimed. The Zephyrians were clearly masters of their energy weapons. Now it is your turn, Veltar said, gesturing to the human team. Amy stepped forward and raised her rifle. It was a modified version of the standard Earth military weapon, designed to work in space. She aimed carefully at the first target and fired. The bullet flew through the vacuum and hit the asteroid, about 2 feet to the left of the target. The Zephyrians looked surprised. Kexlan whispered something to Commander Veltar, who nodded. Perhaps the gravity here is different from your home world, Veltar suggested politely. Amy adjusted her aim and fired again. This time the bullet hit the ground several feet short of the target. Now the Zephyrians were starting to look amused. Lucas stepped up and took his turn. His shot went wide to the right, missing the target completely. Danny's shot was even worse, flying high over the target and disappearing into space. How curious, Kexlan said, barely hiding his laughter. Your weapons seem to be quite unpredictable. Maybe. We need more practice, Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. But as the competition continued, the human shooting got worse, not better. Amy's shots were all over the place. Lucas couldn't hit anything. Danny's bullets seemed to go everywhere, except where he aimed them. The Zephyrians were no longer trying to hide their amusement. They whispered among themselves, pointing at the humans and making sounds that could only be laughter. Perhaps, Commander Veltar said, his voice now carrying a note of condescension, your species is not naturally suited for precision work. There is no shame in this. Every species has its strengths and weaknesses. Jake felt his face getting hot with embarrassment, but he forced himself to remain calm. You're probably right, he said. We're still learning. As they prepared to return to their ships, Jake heard one of the Zephyrians say to another, how did they ever achieve spaceflight with such poor coordination? Perhaps they are not as advanced as we thought. Back on the Liberty, Jake gathered his team in the briefing room. The moment the door closed, Amy grinned. How did we do, Captain? She asked. Perfect, Jake replied. They think we're completely incompetent with weapons. Every shot was exactly where I wanted it to be, Amy said proudly. We're going to need a few more days to get everything in position, but the plan is working. Lucas and Danny smiled. They had all been in on the deception from the beginning. Just remember, Jake warned, we need to keep this up. If they suspect, we're not as helpless as we seem. The whole plan falls apart. Through the viewing port, they could see the Zephyrian ships in the distance. The aliens had no idea that humanity's greatest weapon was not their accuracy with firearms, but their ability to make their enemies underestimate them. The real test was just beginning. The next morning, Captain Jake Morrison woke up to find 3 more Zephyrian ships had arrived during the night. Through the viewing screen on the bridge, he could see the alien vessels floating in space like glowing jewels. Each ship was different, with crystal walls that seemed to bend light in strange ways. Captain Lisa Bennett called from her communication station. "I'm picking up a lot of chatter from the alien ships. They're talking about yesterday's shooting contest." "What are they saying?" Jake asked, though he had a pretty good idea. Lisa listened to her headphones for a moment, then looked up with a mix of amusement and concern. "They're calling us things like the blind shooters and the creatures who cannot aim. Word has spread through their entire fleet about how badly we performed." Amy Carter walked onto the bridge, carrying her rifle and looking ready for another day of pretending to be a terrible shot. "How many ships are out there now?" she asked. 6, replied Lieutenant Ben Parker from the sensor station. Ben was a quiet man who had joined the crew just before they left Earth. He was good with computers and had a sharp mind for details. "And Captain, they're not just military ships anymore. Some of them look like civilian vessels." Jake frowned. "Civilian ships? Yes, sir. I think they're bringing their families to watch our next shooting demonstration. They seem to think we're some kind of entertainment." Amy laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Great. We've become a comedy show for aliens." 2 hours later, Jake found himself back on the asteroid. This time, there were many more Zephyrians watching. Some were clearly soldiers like Commander Veltar, but others wore different clothes and had a more relaxed appearance. A few were smaller, probably children, who pointed at the humans and made excited noises. Captain Morrison, Commander Veltar, greeted him with what was definitely a condescending smile. "I hope you do not mind that we have invited others to observe today's activities. Your species' unique approach to marksmanship has become quite the topic of conversation." "We don't mind at all," Jake replied, keeping his voice steady. "We're always happy to share our culture with new friends." Science Officer Kexlan approached with a group of other Zephyrians. "I have been studying your weapons," he announced. "They are quite primitive compared to our energy systems. Perhaps this explains your difficulty with accuracy." "Our weapons may be simple," Lucas Hayes said, "but they get the job done." "Do they?" asked a new Zephyrian that Jake hadn't met before. This one was larger than the others, with darker blue skin and scars across his arms. "I am War Commander Dexmore. I have seen many species and their weapons. Yours are among the most ineffective I have encountered." Amy stepped forward, her rifle in her hands. "Would you like to see another demonstration?" "Please," Exmore said with obvious amusement. "I am most curious to see if you can actually hit anything today." The Zephyrians had set up new targets for the second day of competition. These targets were not just stationary metal plates. Some of them moved slowly across the asteroid surface, powered by small engines. Others hung in space, drifting in predictable patterns. Weapons Master Zareth went first, as he had the day before. His energy beam tracked a moving target perfectly, hitting it dead center and causing it to explode in a shower of sparks. The watching Zephyrians cheered. Kexlan hit a distant target that was barely visible to the human eye. Commander Veltar destroyed 3 moving targets in less than 10 seconds. Even the civilian Zephyrians took turns, and every single one of them hit their targets with perfect accuracy. "Your turn," Exmore said to the humans, his voice dripping with fake politeness. Amy raised her rifle and aimed at the closest moving target. She tracked it carefully and fired. The bullet flew past the target and hit the asteroid surface about 5 feet away. The Zephyrian children laughed and clapped their hands. Their parents watched with amused expressions. Amy tried again. This Time her shot went in completely the wrong direction, sailing off into space and disappearing among the stars. Perhaps you should try a stationary target, suggested one of the civilian Zephyrians. Something that does not move might be easier for you. Danny Foster stepped up and aimed at a large, motionless target only 50 feet away. His shot hit the ground 10 feet in front of the target, kicking up a small cloud of dust dot. Now the Zephyrians were not even trying to hide their laughter. They pointed at the humans and spoke in their musical language, clearly making jokes about human incompetence. Lucas took his turn and somehow managed to miss a target the size of a car door. His bullet hit the asteroid wall behind the target, creating a small crater. "This is remarkable," Kexlen said to his companions. "How did these creatures ever survive long enough to develop space travel? On their homeworld, surely they must have predators that would have eliminated such poorly coordinated individuals." "Maybe they had no predators," suggested another Zephyrian. "Perhaps they lived in a very safe environment where accuracy was not important for survival." War Commander Vexmore was studying the humans with a different expression now. Where the others saw comedy, he seemed to see opportunity. "Tell me, Captain Morrison," he said, "how does your military function if your soldiers cannot hit their targets?" Jake had been expecting this question. "We use different tactics than you might expect. We rely more on teamwork and strategy than individual marksmanship." "Strategy?" Vexmore repeated, as if the word was funny. What strategy could possibly overcome such fundamental incompetence? Before Jake could answer, Amy fired another shot. This one went so wide that it hit a piece of space debris floating near the asteroid. The debris spun away, glowing from the impact. The Zephyrian children burst into fresh laughter. Even some of the adult aliens were openly giggling now. "I think we have seen enough for today," Commander Veltar said, though he was still smiling. "Perhaps tomorrow we could try something different. Maybe a competition that does not require accuracy." As the humans prepared to leave, Jake overheard more conversations among the Zephyrians. They were discussing whether humans posed any threat at all. Some suggested that maybe humans would make good servants, since they were clearly not capable of being warriors. "They seem harmless enough," one civilian was saying. "Perhaps we could use them for simple labor. They are strong, even if they cannot aim." "I agree," replied another. "Any species this incompetent with weapons could never be a threat to the Zephyr Empire." Back on the Liberty, Jake called a meeting with his senior staff. Along with Amy, Lucas, and Danny, he had asked Ben Parker and Chief Engineer Tony Wright to join them. Tony was a stocky man with grease-stained hands who understood machines better than anyone else on the ship. "How are we doing so far?" Jake asked. Amy pulled out a small tablet and showed them a detailed map of the asteroid field. "Every shot has been perfect. We now have reflective fragments placed at 17 different locations. The trajectory calculations are working exactly as planned. The Zephyrians are completely convinced we're hopeless," Lucas added. "They're not even watching us carefully anymore. They think we're just entertainment." Ben looked worried. "Captain, I'm monitoring their communications. Some of them are starting to talk about what to do with us. That War Commander Vexmore is suggesting that humans might be useful as slaves." "Let them think that," Jake said. "The more they underestimate us, the better our plan will work." Tony Wright had been quiet during the meeting, but now he spoke up. "Captain, I've been working on those modifications you requested. The weapon systems are ready for Phase 2 of the operation. When you give the word, we can begin the real demonstration." "Not yet," Jake said. "We need at least 2 more days to get everything in position." "Amy, how many more shots do you need?" Amy consulted her tablet again. 23 more placements, sir. Maybe 24, if we want to be absolutely certain." "Then we keep up the act," Jake decided. "Let them laugh at us. Let them think we're weak and stupid. When the time comes, they'll learn the truth about human strategy. Through the viewing port, they could see the Zephyrian ships. More had arrived during the day, drawn by stories of the incompetent aliens who couldn't hit the broadside of a space station. What the Zephyrians didn't realize was that every missed shot was part of a carefully planned operation. The humans were not trying to hit the targets everyone could see. They were preparing to hit a target that nobody suspected existed. The real demonstration was still to come. Dr. Emma Rodriguez sat in her laboratory aboard the Liberty, studying video recordings of the Zephyrian ships. Emma was the ship's xenobiologist, a scientist who specialized in alien life forms. She had short dark hair and wore thick glasses that made her look younger than her 35 years. For the past 2 days, she had been watching everything the aliens did, trying to understand their behavior and technology. Computer, replay section 7, she said to the ship's artificial intelligence system. The screen showed the Zephyrian fleet from yesterday. Emma watched carefully as the alien ships moved through space. They did not fly randomly. Instead, they followed specific patterns, like a dance that had been practiced many times. Interesting, Emma muttered to herself. She made notes on her tablet. The Zephyrians always kept their largest ship in the center, with the smaller vessels arranged in a perfect circle around it. When they moved, they maintained exact distances from each other. Emma switched to a different recording. This one showed the aliens firing their energy weapons during a shooting contest. She slowed down the video and watched frame by frame. Each time a Zephyrian fired, their weapon created a bright flash and a distinctive electromagnetic signature. Computer, analyze the energy patterns from the alien weapons, she commanded. Data scrolled across her screen. The computer had detected specific frequencies and power levels. Every Zephyrian weapon used the same type of energy, just at different intensities. This meant they probably all had the same weaknesses too. Emma picked up her communication device and called Captain Morrison. Jake, I think you should see this. I found something important about the Zephyrians. 20 minutes later, Jake stood in Emma's lab along with Amy Carter and Chief Engineer Tony Wright. Emma showed them her findings on the main screen. Look at this, she said, pointing to the energy analysis. All their weapons work on the same frequency. And see these formation patterns? They're not random. The Zephyrians follow very strict rules about how they position their ships. What does that mean for us? Jake asked. It means they're predictable, Emma replied. They think in patterns. They do the same things the same way, every time. That could be useful information. Amy was studying the ship formation data. Emma, do you have the positions of all their ships mapped out? Of course. Emma brought up a 3-dimensional model of the asteroid field with all the Zephyrian vessels marked as glowing dots. This is updated in real time. See how they maintain those exact distances? They've been in the same relative positions for 3 days now. Amy pulled out her own tablet and compared it to Emma's display. Her tablet showed the locations of all her missed shots from the past 2 days. When she overlaid the 2 images, pattern began to emerge. Tony, Amy said excitedly, look at this. Every fragment I've placed is positioned perfectly to create ricochets between the alien ships. Tony studied the combined data. His engineering mind quickly grasped what Amy had accomplished. This is brilliant. You've turned the entire asteroid field into a giant billiard table. Meanwhile, on the asteroid surface, the 3rd day of the shooting competition was about to begin. Even more Zephyrian ships had arrived overnight. Jake counted at least 15 vessels now, ranging from massive warships to small family cruisers. The aliens had turned the human shooting contest into a major social event. Commander Veltar greeted Jake with his usual condescending smile. Captain Morrison, welcome back. I trust you have been practicing your marksmanship? We're always trying to improve. Jake replied diplomatically. War Commander Thex Moore was present again, along with several other military officers Jake hadn't seen before. They stood apart from the civilian Zephyrians, watching the humans with calculating eyes. "Today we have prepared more challenging targets," announced Weapons Master Zareth. "Perhaps greater difficulty will inspire better performance." The new targets were indeed more complex. Some moved in unpredictable patterns. Others were smaller and harder to see. A few were partially hidden behind pieces of asteroid debris. The Zephyrians demonstrated their skills first, as always. Each alien hit their assigned target with perfect accuracy. The watching crowd cheered and applauded. Even the most difficult targets were destroyed effortlessly. "Your turn," Exmoor said to the humans. "Try not to disappoint us too badly." Amy stepped forward with her rifle. She had been planning this shot for hours, calculating angles and trajectories. She aimed at what appeared to be empty space near the edge of the asteroid and fired. The bullet sailed past all the targets and struck a piece of metallic debris that had been accidentally created during her shooting session 2 days ago. The impact sent the debris spinning, and it collided with another fragment, which hit another piece, creating a chain reaction. The Zephyrians watched in confusion as bits of metal bounced and ricocheted across the asteroid's surface. The chain reaction lasted for almost 30 seconds before finally stopping. "What was that supposed to accomplish?" asked Kexlin. "I was aiming for the target," Amy said innocently. "I guess I missed again." The aliens burst into fresh laughter. "You did not just miss," said one of the civilians. "You created some kind of accidental art project." Ben Parker took his turn next. He had joined Amy's team for the larger demonstrations, replacing Danny Foster, who was back on the ship monitoring communications. Ben was nervous about his part in the deception, but he followed Amy's instructions exactly. His shot also appeared to miss completely, but it struck another carefully placed fragment. This created a different chain reaction that sent metallic pieces flying in all directions. "Remarkable," commented Science Officer Kexlin. "These humans seem to be accidentally creating complex physics experiments. They miss their targets, but they create fascinating secondary effects. It's almost like they're trying to hit everything except what they're supposed to hit," added another Zephyrian scientist. Lucas Hayes fired next. His bullet ricocheted off 3 different surfaces before finally coming to rest in a crater he had accidentally created the day before. The Zephyrian children were delighted by the spectacle. They clapped and cheered every time a human shot created an unexpected chain reaction. To them, it was better than any circus performance. But War Commander Vexmore was not amused. He stepped closer to Jake and spoke in a low voice. "Captain Morrison, I am beginning to wonder if your people are truly as incompetent as you appear, or if you are playing some kind of game." Jake's heart skipped a beat, but he kept his expression neutral. "I'm not sure what you mean, Commander." "We're doing our best. Are you?" Exmore's dark eyes studied Jake carefully. "Your shots miss their intended targets, but they create very elaborate secondary effects. That suggests a level of calculation that seems inconsistent with simple incompetence." Before Jake could respond, Amy fired another shot. This one created the most complex chain reaction yet, sending debris bouncing in a pattern that almost looked deliberate. Vexmore watched the ricocheting fragments with growing suspicion. "Very interesting," he murmured back on the Liberty, Tony. Wright was busy in the engineering section. He had been working around the clock to modify the ship's weapon systems based on the data Amy's team had been collecting. The seemingly random shots had provided crucial information about Zephyrian shield frequencies and structural weaknesses. "Computer, run Simulation 17, Tony commanded. The engineering computer created a 3-dimensional model showing the entire asteroid field. Tiny dots represented every fragment Amy had placed over the past 3 days. Lines showed the calculated trajectories of future shots. Perfect, Tony said with satisfaction. The pattern is complete. When Amy fires the final sequence, every piece will be exactly where it needs to be. He opened a communication channel to Captain Morrison. Jake, the modifications are finished. We're ready for Phase 3 whenever you give the order. On the asteroid, the shooting demonstration was coming to an end for the day. The Zephyrians had grown tired of watching human incompetence, though some still found it amusing. Perhaps tomorrow we should try a different kind of competition, suggested Commander Veltar. Something that does not require precision. Maybe a test of strength or endurance. That might be better suited to our abilities. Jake agreed as the humans. Prepared to return to their ship, Jake noticed that Thexmore was still watching them intently. The war commander had clearly begun to suspect that something was not what it seemed. That night, Jake called another meeting with his senior staff. Emma Rodriguez had more data to share about Zephyrian technology and behavior patterns. I've been analyzing their communication frequencies, Emma reported. They have a central relay system hidden somewhere in this asteroid field. It connects all their ships to their home world and provides navigation data. Where is it? Amy asked. Emma highlighted a section of her 3-dimensional map. Based on the signal patterns, it should be right here. But I can't see it visually. It must be camouflaged or hidden inside one of the larger asteroids. Amy studied the location Emma had identified. Then she smiled. I know exactly where it is. And tomorrow, I'm going to hit it. The real target had finally been revealed. All the missed shots, all the ricocheting fragments, all the careful planning had led to this moment. The Zephyrians thought they were watching a comedy of errors, but they were actually witnessing the preparation for the most précis. Captain Jake Morrison woke up on the 4th day to find that everything had changed. Through his cabin window, he could see that the Zephyrian ships had moved closer to the Liberty during the night. They were no longer in their usual formation. Instead, they had arranged themselves in what looked like an attack pattern. Jake quickly dressed and hurried to the bridge. Lisa Bennett was already at her communication station, looking worried. Captain, we have a problem, she said as soon as she saw him. The aliens have been talking all night. War Commander Thexmore has convinced the other military leaders that we might be dangerous. What exactly are they saying? Jake asked. Lisa put the alien conversations on the main speakers. Even through the translation device, Jake could hear the anger in Thexmore's voice. These humans are not as stupid as they pretend to be, Thexmore was telling his officers. I have been watching them carefully. Their shots create patterns that are too complex to be accidental. They are planning something. Another voice replied, But Commander, they cannot hit anything. How can they be a threat to us? That is exactly what they want us to think, Exmoor responded. I believe they are using some kind of deception. No species could survive long enough to reach space. If they were truly this incompetent. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Their plan was in danger of being discovered too early. Amy Carter arrived on the bridge, carrying her rifle and looking ready for another day of fake shooting. Captain, are we still going ahead with the demonstration today? Before Jake could answer, the main communication screen lit up. Commander Veltar's face appeared, but his usual friendly expression was gone. Behind him, Jake could see War Commander Thexmore and several other military officers. Captain Morrison, Veltar said formally, we need to talk. Come to the asteroid immediately and bring your weapons team. Is there a problem, Commander? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. That is what we intend to find out. Thexmore's voice came from off-screen. Come now, or we will consider it an act of hostility. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They all knew what this meant. The Zephyrians were no longer treating this as a friendly competition. "We'll be right there," Jake told Veltar. Hour later, Jake stood on the asteroid surface with Amy, Lucas, and Ben Parker. The atmosphere felt very different from the previous days. Instead of laughing civilians and excited children, the asteroid was now filled with armed Zephyrian soldiers. Their energy weapons were not holstered. They held them ready for use. War Commander Vexmore stepped forward. He was even more intimidating than before, with his dark blue skin and battle scars. "Captain Morrison, we have been discussing your species' performance over the past 3 days. I hope you found it educational," Jake replied carefully. "Oh, we did," Vexmore said with a cold smile. "We learned that you are either the most incompetent species in the galaxy, or you are trying to deceive us." "Which is it?" Jake felt sweat forming under his spacesuit. "I'm not sure what you mean, Commander." "Let me be more specific," Vexmore continued. "Your shots miss their targets, but they create elaborate chain reactions. Your bullets hit debris in patterns that seem almost planned. This does not happen by accident." Commander Veltar looked embarrassed. "Vexmore, surely you are overthinking this. These humans are clearly just poor marksmen, are they?" Vexmore gestured to one of his soldiers, who brought forward a large tablet. The screen showed a detailed analysis of every shot the humans had fired over the past 3 days. "Look at this data. Every missed shot has created fragments in specific locations. If you connect these locations, they form a complex network across the entire asteroid field." Jake's heart was pounding, but he forced himself to remain calm. "That's an interesting coincidence, but I don't see what it proves." "Coincidence?" Vexmore's voice rose. "Captain Morrison, the probability of these patterns occurring by accident is less than 1 in a billion. You have been lying to us from the beginning." Science Officer Kexland stepped forward, studying the data on the tablet. "Commander Vexmore, even if this is true, what could they possibly accomplish? Their weapons are primitive. They cannot penetrate our shields or damage our ships." "That is what we are going to find out," Vexmore announced. "I am ordering you to demonstrate your real shooting abilities. No more games. Show us what you can actually do." Jake looked at Amy. She nodded slightly, letting him know she was ready. "Very well," Jake said. "But first, I want to clarify something. You believe we have been deceiving you about our shooting abilities?" "That is correct," Vexmore replied. "And you think we might be planning some kind of attack?" "It is possible." Jake nodded. "Then let me ask you this, Commander. If we were planning an attack, what would be our most logical target?" Vexmore frowned. "Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Perhaps you would try to damage our equipment or supplies." "Think bigger," Jake said. "If you wanted to defeat an entire fleet without firing a single shot at their ships, what would you target?" The war commander's expression began to change as understanding dawned on his face. "No," he whispered. "You could not possibly know about double quotes about your communication relay?" Jake finished. "The device that connects your fleet to your home world? The system that provides navigation data and allows you to call for reinforcements?" Commander Veltar went very still. "How do you know about the relay?" "It is completely hidden." "Hidden, but not undetectable," Jake replied. "Dr. Emma Rodriguez, our xenobiologist, identified its location by analyzing your communication patterns. It's inside that large asteroid, isn't it?" He pointed to a massive rock formation about 2 miles away. Vexmore raised his energy weapon and aimed it at Jake. "If you know about the relay, then you are definitely planning to attack it." "I will not allow this." "Commander, wait," Veltar said urgently. "If they wanted to attack the relay, why would they tell us about it? This makes no sense." Jake smiled. "It makes perfect sense once you understand what we've really been doing for the past 3 days. Amy stepped forward and raised her rifle. But instead of aiming at any of the Zephyrians, she pointed it toward what appeared to be empty space near the edge of the asteroid. "You see," Jake continued, "you were right about one thing. We haven't been aiming at the targets you could see. But you were wrong about what our real target is." Amy pulled the trigger. The bullet flew through space and struck a piece of metallic debris that had been placed there 2 days earlier. The impact sent the debris spinning toward another fragment, which hit another piece, which struck another. The Zephyrians watched in amazement as a chain reaction began to unfold across the entire asteroid field. Fragments that had been accidentally created over the past 3 days began to collide with each other in a carefully choreographed sequence. "Impossible," breathed Kexlon. "The precision required for this ... is far beyond what any of us thought. These humans were capable of," Exmore finished. His weapons still trained on Jake. The chain reaction continued, growing more complex with each collision. Pieces of metal bounced off asteroids, hit other fragments, and sent debris flying in all directions. But none of it was random. Every collision had been calculated. Every trajectory had been planned. "You want to know what our real target is?" Jake asked as the spectacular display continued around them. "Watch and learn." The final piece of debris in the sequence struck what looked like just another fragment of asteroid rock. But when it hit, the rock split open, revealing sophisticated alien technology hidden inside. Commander Veltar gasped. "That is impossible. The relay is protected by our most advanced camouflage systems." "Not anymore," Amy said quietly. The hidden communication relay was now exposed, its crystalline structure gleaming in the light of distant stars. But the chain reaction was not finished. One more fragment, moving with perfect accuracy, was flying directly toward the revealed device. "Stop this," Dexmore shouted. "I order you to stop this immediately." Jake looked at the war commander with steady eyes. "I'm afraid it's too late for that, Commander. You see, when humans miss their target, we might not have been aiming at the target you could see." The final fragment struck the communication relay dead center. The device exploded in a brilliant flash of light, sending pieces of alien technology scattered across the asteroid field. In the sudden silence that followed, Commander Veltar's communication device crackled with static. He tried to contact his home world, but received no response. He tried to reach other Zephyrian fleets, but the channels were dead. "The relay is destroyed," he said in a stunned voice. "We are cut off from the Empire. We cannot call for help. We cannot even navigate back home without the relay's positioning." "Data." Dexmore still held his weapon pointed at Jake, but his hand was shaking now. "How?" he whispered. "How did you do this?" Jake smiled. "Commander, you made the same mistake that many others have made when dealing with humans. You assumed that because we couldn't hit what you wanted us to hit, we couldn't hit what we needed to hit." Amy lowered her rifle. "Every shot was exactly where it needed to be. We just weren't AI." The smoking remains of the communication relay drifted through space like broken glass. War Commander Dexmore still held his energy weapon pointed at Captain Jake Morrison, but his hands were shaking now. The other Zephyrian soldiers looked confused and frightened. They had never seen their technology destroyed so completely. "You have just committed an act of war against the Zephyrian Empire," Dexmore said, his voice filled with rage. "When our reinforcements arrive, you will pay for this treachery." Jake remained calm, his hands at his sides. "Commander, I think you misunderstood what just happened here. We did not attack your ships. We did not harm any of your people. We simply removed a piece of equipment that was spying on us." "Spying?" Commander Veltar looked shocked. "The communication relay was not spying on you. It was connecting us to our home world." Amy Carter stepped forward, her rifle now slung over her shoulder. Commander Veltar, that relay was doing much more than just communication. Our scans showed it was also recording everything we said and did. It was mapping our ship's technology and sending the data back to your military. Science Officer Kexlan checked his own scanning device. She is correct. The relay was indeed performing surveillance functions. I was not aware of this. Vexmore's face grew darker. Of course it was gathering intelligence. These aliens appeared in our space without warning. We needed to know if they were a threat. And now you know, Jake said simply. We are a threat to anyone who tries to harm us. But we are also willing to be friends with those who treat us with respect. Ben Parker had been quietly working with a small device during the conversation. Now he looked up with a smile. Captain, I've been monitoring their ship communications. Without the relay, they can't coordinate their fleet movements. Each ship is operating independently now. What does that mean? Lucas Hayes asked. It means, Amy explained, that they can't work together as a single force anymore. Each ship has to make its own decisions. Some might want to fight, others might want to negotiate, and some might just want to go home. As if to prove her point, several of the smaller Zephyrian ships began to move away from the asteroid. These were the civilian vessels that had come to watch the shooting contest. Without orders from their military command, the families aboard. Those ships were choosing to leave the area. Commander Veltar watched his people departing and sighed. Captain Morrison, I begin to understand what you have accomplished. You have not destroyed our fleet, but you have made it impossible for us to act as one unit. That was the idea, Jake admitted. We needed to level the playing field. Your ships are more advanced than ours. Your weapons are more powerful. But without your communication system, you cannot use your superior numbers against us. Exmoor lowered his weapon slightly. So what happens now? You have trapped us here. We cannot call for help. We cannot navigate back to our home worlds. What do you want from us? Jake looked around at the assembled Zephyrians. The soldiers still looked angry, but the civilian scientists and diplomats seemed more curious than hostile. We want the same thing we wanted when we first met, Jake said. We want to learn about the universe and make friends with other intelligent species. But we also want to be treated as equals, not as primitives or potential slaves. Dr. Emma Rodriguez's voice came through Jake's communication device. She was still aboard the Liberty, monitoring the situation. Captain, I'm detecting movement from the larger Zephyrian warships. They're powering up their weapon systems. Exmoor heard this and smiled grimly. It appears some of my officers have decided to resolve this situation through force. Even without the relay, we still have enough firepower to destroy your ship. Jake nodded calmly. Yes, you probably do. But Commander, let me ask you something. If you destroy us, how will you get home? What do you mean? Veltar asked. Amy Carter pulled out her tablet and showed them a star chart. The communication relay didn't just connect you to your home world. It also provided navigation data. Without it, you're lost in space. That is impossible, Kexlan protested. We have our own navigation systems. Do you? Emma Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system again. Dr. Kexlan, I've been studying your technology for days. Your ships use quantum positioning. That depends on connection to a network of relays. With this relay destroyed, you can't determine your exact location in space. Tony Wright's voice joined the conversation from the Liberty's engineering section. The humans are correct. I've been analyzing your ship designs. Your navigation computers are designed to work with the relay network. Without it, you're basically flying blind. Exmoor's confident expression began to fade. You are saying we cannot return home? Not without help, Jake said. But here's the interesting part. We can help you get home. How? demanded Veltar. Our navigation systems work differently from yours, Jake explained. We use independent stellar positioning that doesn't require communication relays. We can guide you back to your territory. Lucas Hayes grinned. In other words, you need us now as much as we need you? The sound of energy weapons charging filled the air. Several Zephyrian warships were preparing to fire on the Liberty. But Commander Veltar quickly opened a communication channel to his fleet. All ships, stand down, he ordered. Do not fire on the human vessel. Commander, came an angry voice from one of the warships. They have destroyed our relay. They must be punished. And then what? Veltar replied. If we destroy them, we will be stranded here forever. They are the only ones who can help us. Navigate home. There was a long silence as the Zephyrian fleet considered this. Slowly, the energy weapons powered down. Vexmore holstered his weapon and looked at Jake with what might have been respect. You planned this entire situation, didn't you? The poor shooting, the chain reaction, even our dependency on the relay. You calculated all of it. Not all of it, Jake admitted. We didn't know you would bring your families to watch our demonstrations. We didn't expect you to treat it as entertainment. But yes, we planned the important parts. Amy smiled. We knew that any advanced civilization would have centralized communication systems. We also knew that if we could disable that system, we could force negotiations instead of conquest. Remarkable, whispered Kexlin. Your species thinks in ways we never considered. You turned your apparent weakness into our vulnerability. Ben Parker was monitoring the Zephyrian ship communications again. Captain, they're discussing our proposal. Most of the fleet seems willing to negotiate now. Jake activated his communication system to address the entire Zephyrian fleet. This is Captain Morrison of the U.E.S. Liberty. I want all of you to understand something important. We did not come here to fight you or conquer you. We came seeking knowledge and friendship. But we will not be conquered or enslaved either. His voice carried across space to every Zephyrian vessel. We have shown you that humans can be dangerous when threatened. But we have also shown you that we prefer cleverness to violence. We would rather outsmart our enemies than destroy them. Commander. Veltar stepped forward. Captain Morrison, on behalf of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps, I would like to begin formal negotiations between our species. It appears we have much to learn from each other. I agree, Jake replied. But first, let's get your people home safely. After all, that's what friends do for each other. As the two fleets began working together to plot a course back to Zephyrian space, the story of the humans who couldn't shoot straight spread throughout both civilizations. It became a legend about the day aliens learned that when humans miss their target, they might not have been aiming at the target you could see. The Zephyrians never again underestimated human intelligence. And the humans learned that sometimes the best way to make friends with aliens is to show them exactly why you would make a very dangerous enemy. Years later, when young Zephyrians learned about human military tactics in their schools, they were taught one simple rule: never assume that humans are aiming where you think they're aiming. Because humans have a very different understanding of what the real target actually is. The friendship between humans and Zephyrians grew strong over the following decades, built on mutual respect and the shared memory of the day when perfect shooting met perfect strategy and strategy won.